Hello, hello, hello. It is Thursday, and welcome to Let's Talk Power Live, where we talk about power in education in real and operational ways. We know that power in education is a real thing, and we know that instructional power is even more real. I am your host, Dr. Tanji Reed Marshall, coming to you with a lot of education experience, done lots of things in education. It is my pleasure to have a great conversation tonight. And it is timely because we're going to be talking about something that really begs us to challenge our commonly held beliefs. There's this thing we like to say in education: all kids can succeed. We say we believe it. We are trained as educators to mimic this statement, to say it on command. Here's the challenge, though. A lot of times, what we say we believe and what we actually believe has a gap. The things coming out of our mouths, but the actions that we say don't always line up. And tonight, we're going to have a fantastic conversation with a gentleman whose work really does help us dig into this opportunity gap. But my first thing is, as we do every week, if you are a subscriber, thank you so much for being part of our Let's Talk Live family. We are excited and appreciate you being here. If you are one of the 80+% of people who continue to date us, we want to ask you to please go ahead and hit the like button and the subscribe button and join the Let's Talk Power Live family. We really do want to make sure we get this conversation into as many places as possible. So go ahead, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. And you know what? If this is resonating with you, go ahead and share it. But the one thing we talk about every week is, what do we mean when we say power in education? Well, as we do every week, I want to give you our definition, and here it is. So, education is the instrument of democratic designs, and it is no less the instrument of power, the control of information, the shaping of understanding, and the influence of judgment are critical elements common to democratic design, power theory, and educational philosophy. That is the capital P of power and education. But here's what we also know. When we break down this idea of power as the umbrella idea in education, there has to be what we would call operational ways. There has to be a way to understand it, put our finger on it in buildings, in districts, and in classrooms. So when I talk about instructional power, what do I mean? Here's what I mean. Understanding your instructional power, it can be understood as an educator's use of their state, their district, and their building ascribed job-related authority to afford or constrain a student's access to learning. That means if you are an educator at any level and any part of your job, whether you get the buses, whether you arrange the buses, whether you orchestrate the lunch schedule, whether you determine a child's schedule, whether you determine what classes are even available in their building, anything you do that affords, meaning to open up or constrain, to hold back a child's access to the excellent education they deserve, you are exercising instructional and educational power. And that's what I mean. And so what does it look like when we begin to have that conversation? I want to also invite you to enjoy our next article series, Becoming Agency Savvy. Last month, we talked about the soft ceiling of misplaced compassion. This time, we're coming through with an article all about, are you savvy? So you can find that article on LinkedIn and you can find it on our website. But let's go ahead and talk about my guest for this evening. And we're going to talk about Kwame Simmons tonight. He is the founder of the Kwame Simmons, the Simmons Advantage, bringing decades of experience to deal with and address opportunity gaps, leadership development, and how to bridge this gap and the divide between what we say and what we believe. And so it gives me great pleasure to welcome Kwame Simmons. Let's live.
Let's go.
How you
Let's
doing?
go. I'm doing well, sis. How you doing?
I am fine. Let me tell you, it has been, I watch your work, I watch you speak, and you have inspired me to think even more deeply around this gap between what we say we believe and what we actually believe. So talk to us, one, about what you do, and then let's get into the next piece of the conversation.
Absolutely. I mean, I just believe that well, first, Tanji, thank you for creating this space, creating a platform. There really just isn't enough spaces created for Black people, particularly Black men and Black women, to exchange and just be together and not have to explain it. And so I'm just honored to be here to support the growth of the show. And hopefully what we discuss tonight is something that is digestible and meaningful for the audience.
Mm-hmm.
And so to your question, what I do, I believe, is the mission in our company, and that is we create opportunity breakthroughs for people to experience transformation.
Okay.
And so when I think what aligns to your definition around power and access, I believe, really starts in something very simple. Not only do students, not only is this true for students, but it's true for our adults. We don't just experience what we believe; we experience what we build.
Ooh, we
Right?
experience what we build. Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Because too many times, for example, we say, we and you stated this earlier, how much we care for kids. Each of us are sitting at conferences every time we ask that question, like, how many of us love kids? 100% of people, 100% of people. But consistently we see this disproportionate number of Black and brown students, particularly Black and brown males, who are like overwhelmingly put out of school to send these subliminal messages that this isn't a place for you. This isn't a place where we want to receive you. Now, what's uncomfortable is that 83% of pre-service teachers are white, female, and from the suburbs. And so, unfortunately, one of the reasons that slaves were not allowed to read is because the fact that we would actually begin one day to put 2 and 2 together.
And get 4. Right. Exactly right.
It's not going to be fuzzy math.
Absolutely.
It's not going to be fuzzy math. We're going to get from point A to point B. And
absolutely.
So if we see then that overwhelmingly the teacher force is white and female, but there's then this overwhelming amount of Black and brown boys who are put somewhere, then we got to say that the fruits of that tree begin with the roots of the philosophy and mentality that many of our white teachers have in relationship to what they believe about Black children. And so that doesn't single out only white females, but what it does say is, I see you. Right. And that the data says what you're doing in that classroom when the doors close is creating an experience for our young Black and brown boys that is the antithesis of what their families are believing you're doing when they send them to you. And so
100%.
and it's also this, and it is also the same thing that we see, like I just stated, when we're at the conferences. Everybody loves the kids. Everybody loves the kids. Right? Until they all show up. And so
until they walk in the building dressing, sounding different than you had in your mind, because we still live in this storybook idea about what a student's supposed to look like. That's and what they're supposed to sound like and where they're supposed to come from. And your statement about this disconnection between the population of the student body in the high 30s, 40s% coming from the population of students of color. And in some schools, the population of Black and brown students is topping 80%. But countrywide, we understand it's 13%, but we're having escalation in other places. But when our teacher pool remains what it has been for and what we both know, the number has gone down. So the 82, 83% that you mentioned is a reduction.
That's right. That's right.
And so when we keep seeing this difference, this gap between representation of who gets to teach me,
that's right,
and how they see me,
that's
is
right,
very different, right? And I think it might have been W.E.B. Du Bois who raised the point and the challenge of sending our kids into schools with the people who formerly enslaved them.
Yep.
And so how do we break this cycle of belief language, because there's belief language and belief action. And you brought up some great points. So let's go ahead and talk about some data, because that really matters. And we know that the pathways are uneven. We know that, right? In 2021 to 2022, 1.8 million students participated in dual enrollment or dual credit. Black students are 15% of enrollment, but 9% of that 1.8 million. Mm-hmm. And students with disability under the IDEA were 14%, but only 5%. So right here, we have uneven pathways. What are we talking about with these uneven pathways?
Yeah, so I think a couple of things, and I appreciate the data, because, you know, too many times I think that people, when we want to have real conversations, believe that we are new to this. But like I try and tell them, I study the best, and we are true to this. And so it's not gonna be a game when you stand before us thinking that we are just talking about something that is just a pie in the sky, or some singular experience. And the reason I say that, because when you brought up the number of kids and what they experience, it also brings me to TNTP's opportunity myth.
Yeah.
Right. So when you think about this opportunity myth, you're saying, hey, wait a minute, you got kids who have been tracked in over 500 classes, and what they realized was that these kids experienced a couple of things. One, lack of consistent grade level work. Absolutely. Strong instruction, lack of engagement, and high expectations. And so now we're starting to take this 83%, and now we're starting to really tease out what is really happening here, right? That you're saying they actually have available to them high expectations. You are consciously making a decision to reduce the level of expectation, or to reduce the level of rigor that is actually provided to them. This is what the data is saying. And so I think that that's problematic. But I think when you also make mention to how do these things happen, I think they also happen because systems create the conditions for them to. And so yes, they do. I think it's important to kind of take a step back, because we're coming up now on the 70th year of Brown versus Board of Education, when the work that Dr. Leslie Fenwick did in the Pink Slip, when she talks about, hey, we're talking about Ruby Bridges and we're talking about the Little Rock Nine, but who is telling the story of the educators who were in those segregated schools that were actually high performing, that were doing the work, and that, we, as much as we admire and marvel at the work of Thurgood Marshall, we allowed the populace to dilute the message. And so what 100%. Actually happened was that became the policy attack on systems, that, we're going to concede to allowing Ruby Bridges and the Little Rock Nine to come in, while adults
have not recovered from.
Yes.
We still have 2% of our teaching force, and actually about 1.8-ish now, of Black male teachers. Yes. And we understand the leadership gap that happened because we wanted this fight. We got some of the things we wanted, but we also had unintended consequences of the same thing.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
So here's
And
just,
there's so
it's
little,
huge.
it's so little conversation that's happening about what the consequences of that decision. And so when we talk about systems, I think it's also important that we also begin to think about the policies that we create. And so as
Mm,
leaders, we are decision makers and signal senders, but so many times we think that, oh, if I can just raise the student achievement. But here's the deal. Yes, we want you to raise student achievement, but kids don't graduate they don't graduate into a world of standards. They graduate into the world of life.
right.
And so, how are we actually preparing them to live and function in the real world? See, these become the larger questions that create the kind of concern around where people are. And so, it's not just like white women are like, oh, we overwhelmingly love education. It's back to this Brown versus Board of Education decision. One of the consequences of that was the changing of policy around teacher certification. So we
Yeah.
began to eliminate the number of Black teachers and administrators. And so once
Mhm.
they began to eliminate those who could enter, then they could focus on those who were already there.
Already
So they
there.
use
Right.
policy in the district to say, oh, no, we're not saying anything is wrong. We actually think that you're great. So Dr. Tanji Reed, we're going to have you come in and you're a phenomenal educator, already recognized. But you know what? Next year, we'd like for you to be the custodian at the
Right.
school.
That's
Right?
right.
No, it's
Yes.
nothing wrong with
Nothing
it.
with
You shouldn't be
you.
upset.
You're fine. Right. Don't be
You should be
upset.
just
That's right.
fine. You can
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
look, I know Simmons was working with you and you were grooming him to take your place after you moved up to be superintendent. Don't worry about that. We got a mail carrier for him.
That's
Right.
right.
And there's nothing wrong with those positions, but when you got two people who have built careers and they're in position to influence and you reduce them to that, and you gotta accept that role or you have to then be terminated because we offered
Determined.
you a position. And
Right.
so
We did. Right.
yes,
Mhm.
it's
We did.
this
We
kind
gave
of
you the chance to work, right? And the intellectual capacity and the intellectual capital that was lost in that very
yes,
deliberate reduction in force is exactly what's happening now. And we
yes,
see this critical shift in the and here's the interesting thing too, and I wonder what you think about this. The power of access and the access shifted. So I was talking to my daughter earlier today, and she was saying about how she had a very different experience with her teachers versus our son. She had a very traditional, lots of
mm,
Black educator sentiments going on in her life. She went to a Black dance studio. She had a lot of Black teachers who really were like, well, if you don't like the owner of her dance studio was like, if you don't give us your grades, you're not going to dance.
come on now.
Our son went to a different school where he didn't have that level of, if you don't show us your X, you can't do Y. And the level of academic excellence and push and the you will not do X if you don't do Y
That's right.
was prevalent in her life across multiple areas. He went
Yes,
to a very, very white school, and she went to a much more mixed race school. And the outcomes of their education were very different based upon that.
that's right.
And I wonder around this idea about how we bring to bear that Paul Laurence Dunbar sentiment that happened in DC, but had to be a force reduction
Mm,
because when those students began to outpace their white counterparts, something had to change.
that's right.
Just like what you're saying, they had to make a workforce decision to make room for more teachers, more white teachers going into quote unquote desegregated. I know I'm supposed to say integrated, but I'm not going to say integrated. I'm going to say desegregated into
Yes.
desegregated schools. So they had to do something with the teachers who were there. So how does that, as you say, the root of all of that, how does that speak to this opportunity gap that you see and how you address it in your work?
I think about one, how I experience things. And what I always say, what I said as a teacher to my colleagues, and then as I um, began to elevate and lead schools, was that kids can only experience, they can only dream about the things that they experience.
Mm.
And so many times when you see this data around that's happening in the opportunity myth around expectations being lower, these are just the four top things. It
Right.
also means that I'm lowering the expectation on opportunity or
Mm.
exposure, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
and this is why like they get upset with us when we start to bring this up in predominantly white environments, and they say, "Oh, my school, we're at 90% proficiency." They try and tout those numbers. I say, "Okay, well that's great." Then tell me who has told the 10% of those kids' families that you're failing them. Tell me who's talked to them, and then let's talk about who is in that 10%. I guarantee you it's overwhelmingly Black. I guarantee you it's overwhelmingly special needs, English language. I said it's these critical areas that you're trying to dust off everything around it and pray to God that it doesn't move, right? To mess up this beautiful painting and this
Apple
beautiful
cart.
situation. I said, so if you truly care about all kids, remember, we're going to keep coming back. You care about all the kids. Who is talking to those families? Because let's think about it. Because when you start to put numbers, so let's say you got a school of 1,000 kids. That means 10% of them are proficient. Great.
Mm-hmm.
Who's talking to the 100 families that's not
That's not
getting
proficient.
access?
Right. Who went
100
and who got right?
That's 100 human beings.
Beings. Who got in a
100
car,
human beings.
right? Who got in a car and drove to every single one of those 100 houses and said, "Hey, let me knock on your door. Let me let you know your child, I failed you."
Come on. Yes.
I don't know who did that. And you know what's interesting? And I write in my book about this. We are fortunate
Yes.
that families do not take us to court sometimes for educational malpractice.
That's right.
We are very fortunate because if I am persistently in and consistently in that 10% of the student population that is not succeeding, and I am paying you my tax dollars in said public school, even in said private school, and I'm giving you my tax dollars or my private school dollars, and my child is from the 5th grade all the way to the 12th grade in the group underperforming. You owe me money. You owe me money. So what, how do we do that? How do we, last week I had Dwayne Chisholm on 2 weeks ago, and we both know Dwayne Chisholm, and he made this profound statement. He said something to the effect of being untruthful to adults is lying to kids' future.
That's right.
So how do we begin to really see the breaking through? Because we both know schools do mindset training. They talk about the belief gap all the time. That's one of the first things that teachers get when they go into a new district. They talk about mindset. You want a growth mindset. You want a this mindset. How do we actualize this kind of work so that in 5 years, you and I can be having a different conversation? How do we do that?
Yeah, I think it's really simple, Tanji. When I think about it, when the number one reason that kids are selected to be put out of class is because of disrespect.
Yep.
It's the number one reason.
Mm-hmm.
And then I say to schools that we work with, who's teaching respect? So if you're not teaching respect, that means every individual adult is interpreting from their own perspective, their own lens, what respect means. And so that leaves every kid at the mercy of 65 to 150 different adults to try and understand their invisible definition that they're going to step on some landmine at any particular day and time, right? because I just didn't know that this was something that was your trigger.
Right.
So I think that becomes a thing. But the solution to this is really where the rubber meets the road. What I say to people, I said, if you want to overnight improve the relationships and culture in your school, ensure that every person, every adult learns the first and last name of every kid and pronounces it correctly, and track it. I said this isn't go to college. You don't need a
Right.
terminal degree.
Right. Not my
Listen,
name. Say my name. That was
listen.
a whole song. That was a whole song. Didn't Beyonce say that? Was that Beyonce? Who was that?
Yes, she did.
Said, say my name. Say my name.
Yes, she did. And think about it. When we were young, when this show came on, and you walked inside this bar lounge, and they said Norm,
Norm, friends.
cheers, because
Cheers.
everybody knows
Cheers.
my name.
Name.
Right. And so that was the vibe when they got in there. Everybody was coming from every walk of life. They were talking about their days at work and how it was stressing them out, but they couldn't wait to get to the bar because everybody knew who they were.
Who
And
they
so
were.
imagine that. Imagine each kid coming to school and they know 65 different adults knows who they are. Imagine how that reduces the level of anxiety for a kid who might be homeless. Family might be going through a divorce or separation. They might have been in a fire. Our kids are going through all kinds of things. But if they just know that somebody is just saying, hey, how you doing today, Kwame? How's everything? Right? You don't even realize what that does to a kid to get those kind of check-in and deposits, that every adult that's walking past high-fiving you and they know exactly who you are. It's not just the quarterback of the team and the captain of the cheer team. It's typically those students who get those deposits and everybody knows them. And so it sends the signal to everyone else, I'm not worthy.
I'm invisible. That's right. I'm invisible. Right. That's, oh my gosh, so true. You know, how do we have a cheers mentality to the building? I want to give us some power moves. One of the things we do here every week is we take these subjects and we boil them down. I don't say boil them down, but we want to make sure our educators, our viewers have a walk away, a takeaway. So I'm going to share some power moves with you and let's talk them through. So here is power move number 1. Move from belief to evidence. Name what adults say they believe about students, but then look for where students actually experience that belief. Notice the gap between adult intention and student opportunity. What are your thoughts?
I love it. I mean, and I think it's what I would name, to build on that or add to that, is build an opportunity dashboard. If you believe that your school is powerful and you're doing the things, list where all the opportunities are and who is participating.
Yeah.
I was guilty. This is one of the reasons why when I started the company, I said, ooh, you got some problems. And this is one of the things. Non-reflective people, Tanji, cannot be highly effective people, because non-reflective people are religiously committed to making excuses.
That's their power. That is their power. That's the power protection. Non-reflective. Oh, absolutely.
They juggling the excuses. They got you inside there twisting and turning, but it's never here. And what I had to say to myself was, you are doing well, but where could you have been better? It was the development of my leadership team, ensuring that they really knew how to lead the school while I was there. I didn't create conditions for them to have to lead in a way where I could help them while I was there. That was a big gap for me. The other was, I did not create equitable competitive options for my special populations.
Wait, say it again.
Especially when I think about my students.
I want that, because that's something that's inequitable, competitive for your special populations. That's huge. We don't even think no one's thinking like that.
That's right. And it's like, I had to say to myself, well, how many of my students in my special ed department applied to application schools?
None.
How many of them did, or what situation did I create when we were doing high school fairs? Did we create a space that was supportive to their special need in a way that didn't make them have to compete with other learners, where they could
Mm-hmm.
dominate the space because they could speak a little faster? Did we do that? The answer was no, I
No.
never did. And so I said, look, I was the person, I was guilty of the same organization that says I'm 90% and I'm trying to hide this 10. Even though that's not what I was trying to do, it does not matter. It's what I did.
It's what you did. That's why we got to do.
On
I
that.
love that. We got to
Yeah.
look. We got to name what we say, right? Look at the actual experience. Where's the gap? And
Yes.
and I love that you said you were guilty. I was guilty of the same power protecting, unreflective behavior. I cannot move forward if I will not take the time to
Right.
lean into some reflection. Here's another one. You just said it, right? Examine the opportunity pathway. Choose
Yes.
one opportunity students should have access. Identify who gets invited, prepared, recommended, or supported. Look for where students are unintentionally screened out. That is exactly what you just said.
And when you think about it, every kid at your school should experience some kind of career exploration or some kind of work-based learning, some opportunity. And I don't care how old the kid is. So a lot of times we want to wait till they get to high school. 5-year-olds need to learn, because here's the deal. This is what I'm doing with my kids. When my kids were really young, I was
Right.
taking them to meetings.
That's
They would
right.
come to conferences. So they learned early how to navigate and negotiate all of these people, all of these senses. And so by the time they got 9, they're like, oh, this is just another one of those.
Them
Right.
things that we do, right? As you know,
Yes.
I look at our own children. Where our children are both adults, which I can't even believe. But they went to my husband's, bankers. My husband was a banker back then. They
Yes.
went to meetings and sat outside things that he had to do. They went to all of the places where he was on the board of something, right?
Yes.
When my husband was working, he's on the board of the DC Jazz Festival. Well, our
Yes.
son had to work the DC Jazz Festival,
Come on
right?
now.
Our daughter had to go with him when he was presenting here, presenting there. And so they grew up in this environment where that becomes an expectation. My husband just opened up a health clinic. Our grandson was on the phone with him today. Hey, OG, because they call him OG. They said, hey, OG. And he said, how's the clinic? That's it. He's not a grandpa. He's an OG.
Yes.
And our grandson said to him, how's the clinic?
Come on.
And proceeded to tell his mom everything inside this clinic. He's 7.
Come on.
So
Come on.
you're right. This idea of making sure that we are that exposure gap, and we can't wait till they get to high school. We got to start it at 5 years old. We got to intensify it at middle school so that they have as many exposure points as possible. And here's our last one. Let's take a look at this one. Power number 3, prepare that pathway. Use the quiet of summer to identify one access point. Maybe you're a leader. Maybe you're a classroom teacher. Identify one. Name one barrier adults can remove. Prepare one pathway students can actually use.
So this one will be, that'll tie to the last one into this one. And it's something that I'm actually doing. I'm targeting my son because he has a little bit more time, and he's my youngest son. He's a little bit older, and I'm taking him with me much more intentionally this summer so he can see the interworkings of the business, how we interact with clients. But I'm also opening his eyes to think about things differently. And so when we think about financial literacy, many times where it's thinking, oh, the stock exchange, some minimal kinds of things there. But, Tanji, what I want for my son and my kids to think about, and I'm focusing on my youngest son, is, son, I want you to begin analyzing certain businesses and think about those that you want to start. But I also want you to think about those that you want to buy.
There we go.
So
Another level of thought, another level of thinking.
it's so much that is overlooked there. I'll give you an example. Detroit, as an example, has 1,115 businesses that
Wow.
are owned by someone 65 or older. That
Wait,
is
whoa, 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 whoa. One over 1,000 just
over
in
one.
Detroit,
Yes, just in
owned
Detroit.
by somebody 65 or old. That is opportunity in your
Come on.
face.
That's right. And so think, if you then start to qualify and say, well, I want to then see how many of these businesses have been in operation 10 or more years and if they're profitable. Because if they are, now you got an opportunity that many are calling like the term boring business, a cleaners, a car wash, uh,
Laundromat.
a laundromat, some of these places. But if they're profitable, you can come right in because somebody's like, hey, I'm too old for this. I don't have time for that. You a young person. You can take that starting point that's already profitable. Think about that. Many of us, when we take jobs, we accept a job, but we don't even consider, is this job going to make me profitable?
Right.
Especially our teachers, because many of them are getting second jobs. They're not thinking about that financial literacy. And so that's
Right.
what I'm trying to pour into him now, is to think about it. And so one thing, example we went over today was we were walking through a business and we saw vending machines. He was like, I want to get something, out of this vending machine. And I said, okay. I said, I'm gonna put it back on you. So now, why don't you think about what it costs to run it? So then, and then you figure out, understand how to run it. Think about if you should buy the machine or if you should buy someone who has the business. I said, because if they got all these machines already in there, why don't you just go ahead and get the whole system?
That's right.
And then now you're able to already be profitable. Because many times with us, we think we have to start from
From
scratch
scratch.
all the time. You don't have
Yeah.
to.
And you know what I call that? We were talking about it. We were talking about it a little while ago. It's like a hazing mentality.
Yeah.
And I don't mean the physical hazing. I mean the mental hazing of just having to workhorse everything,
Yes.
right? It's that like, I did it this way, so you got to do it this way. It's the constant starting our kids, our families from scratch,
Yes.
having to, because if I give it to you, then you're not going to work hard.
That's right.
Whereas if we talk about opportunity from a broad base, and we have to also, I want to challenge us even to think through, do we talk about opportunity beyond the four walls of the building?
Come on.
Right? We
Right.
see this influx, this growth of micro schooling that's happened, it began to happen during the pandemic. When we talk about opportunity gaps, we tend to boil it down to the academics inside the building. And so maybe this conversation can offer an educator at any level again to rethink, what does it mean to orchestrate and design opportunities that require high levels of academics, which we know our kids aren't getting,
Right.
which can then open up a window for the kinds of opportunities you're talking about, right? That make financial literacy more than just, can I balance my checkbook? Can I invest in the stock market?
Hmm.
You
Yeah,
know,
I agree with that. I agree with that 1,000%. I think it's so important that if you're leading schools, whether you're in a classroom or any other position, if you're an adult, you're a leader in that school. It's so
absolutely.
important that kids feel seen, valued, and heard. That is important that their voices are elevated, because and you're thinking about the things for them, because this is how I just believe this as a leader. Whatever level you are of a leader, your primary role for anyone that reports to you is to remove the obstacles for them that they can't remove for themselves.
Themselves.
Right?
Yes.
That is your
That's your number
number
one
one thing. If
job.
you want to be relevant,
Yes.
do that.
Do
Right?
that.
Because people will then see you as a resource. They can
Right.
come to you because that begets problem solving. That I'm
Mm-hmm.
thinking about you even when you're not thinking about yourself. That I see this thing coming. Let me get this out of your way so you can continue with the momentum of doing great things. So I think that we have to be more intentional about exposing young people to people that look like them inside the schools and exposing all people to them. And so it's important that, and it's tough. They want to come and get a person that like you or like myself, but we put a lot of time and effort into this. So don't go get me and then sit me next to just some regular person. No. We put time and effort in. They don't know that we were in Ghana, 3 years ago.
3 years ago. Right, exactly. Exactly.
The stage and pouring into the continent in a way that said, hey, look, no, this is important to us.
Mm-hmm.
So no, you're not looking, you can't just pull just some regular person and sit them next to us. So I think that is a key ingredient. So I would stop there and just to make sure that the exposure is proper in terms of the people that they see.
Mm-hmm.
That someone is policing this opportunity, and that someone is also policing the opportunity myth, right? To ensure that your kids in your school are not being violated by someone serving as a serial killer.
Ooh, okay.
Because that's what you're doing.
The academic, as an academic, educational serial lesson. A serial killer. Like I said, we're fortunate that this system, and I name it in the book, we are fortunate that the people, like the kids and the teachers in this system, know how it works and let it happen.
Yes.
Because at any given moment, it could shut down. That's at some point, everyone's like, you know what? No more. No more. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so on that note, we're going to say, wow, to make sure that they're not, wait, I want you to say it in your words again. Go ahead. Because I'm not going to, you say it.
Yes. And so what we want is that our educators and our students don't experience educators who are serial killers. And so, guys, I just want to thank you all for allowing me to be here. This is my sister. I love it. I love what she's doing. We're going to always stop whatever we're doing to support her because the work that she's doing is absolutely amazing. And so thank you guys for tuning in. And thank you, Tanji, for creating this space.
And you will be back because we're going to explore that again. So that's another session of Let's Talk Power Live, everybody, for Kwame Simmons, the Simmons Advantage. Go check him out. Sir, you owe the marketplace a book, but we'll talk about that next time.
Yes. It is in the works. Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead, get your pen together because we are waiting for that to happen. Folks, again, please make sure we have our article out that is really important, Becoming Agency Savvy, and our summer Power Chat series, one education author, one book, one big idea. Look for those coming to you. We got first up, Dr. Mary Rice Booth. We have Dwayne Chisholm. We have Ashley Cuthbertson. We have Dr. Jeremiah Sims out of Berkeley. We had Dr. Jackson coming. And a little birdie told me we just might be having Zaretta Hammond join us. So there we have it, everybody. Have a great rest of your night. Kwame, we'll see you soon. Although remember, please go ahead, subscribe to this channel. And if tonight touched you in some way, please share it. Take care.